Hey Raj, how are you?
Hey, hi Vijay. Hi Vijay. Vijay
Hi,
is also a fellow coach. Vijay is joined in from Kuala Lumpur.
Hi, Vijay.
Hi.
So,
Yes.
I'm going to. I'll start off with a small.
Yes.
meeting chal raha hai.
Benita,
Hello?
can you mute everybody? Is that possible? Okay.
Yeah, I can mute it.
I'm going to share a little bit about Business Clinic and then later on introduce Nimesh and then hand over. Okay. Yeah. Recently. So, thank you guys for. I'm just going to give you a quick background about the Business Clinic. I was telling Nimesh before you came in that sometime in 2018 and around October, I retired from ITC and got qualified as a leadership coach and coach several people now. And during this coaching journey, and while interacting with corporates and medium-scale industries, I found a need for an outside-in approach. Since people wanted to know what's happening outside, they didn't have an evidence. So I said, why don't we develop something, using the network of the people whom we know, and and make this advice available easily for the people. So that's how Business Clinic was born. We do in the short video you see we do leadership coaching, we do short-term consultations, we do strategy consultations, we do several things, and it's really worked. And people have been pretty happy, and we have done over 70-80 consultations, about 25 coaching assignments, and it's going on pretty well. So I want to thank you all for the support. And every month we have this session, 15th, where we are able to get people of repute to come and speak to us and give us their words of wisdom. So we keep learning. The learning circle continues. And thank you all for attending this webinars and making this sessions interesting. So I'm going to take you to now the next big part is I have to introduce a great guy, which is Nimesh. Nimesh, thank you so much, first Nimesh, for joining us. This is the flyer, and he's basically, as I told you, he's a great guy, and brings 20 years of experience on the table of sensitizing entrepreneurs and leaders across spectrum. Formative years were spent on the shop floor of his family's manufacturing setup post his education as an engineer. He's an engineer, but he's now on crypto and blockchain. Okay, passion drew him to macroeconomics and an assignment in association with International Finance Corporation. Nimesh has a global footprint, has been invited on board by a Japanese MNC. So to sensitize, I think we want to know more about this, sensitize about Nimesh. Their leadership across the globe on the respective macro environment. Econo is a proprietary immersion on the subject, has traveled to Russia, Philippines, and Dubai. Is passionate about trekking and has traveled 16,000 feet plus on foot in the Himalayan ranges. He's equally passionate about influencing rural India, applying the economic principles on the field, and has been engaging with the cluster of 25 remote villages. In his constant search for disruptive macroeconomic, Nimesh has been keenly tracking the blockchain and cryptocurrencies since 2019, about which he's going to talk to us today. He's ably guided by the Chief Technology Officer of his 16-year-old his son, in the subject matter, with the expression, his permission from the CFO of the family, his very capable wife, Rintu. He has influenced over 20,000 professionals and leaders, 5,000 plus chartered accountants through ICI, a few hundred actuarial professionals through with the Institute of Actuaries, and a large cluster of students through his engagement as a SPJ. So welcome, Nimesh, and thank you so much for joining us. With this, over to you, Nimesh. All yours.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'll take a moment to welcome everybody. And I know some of you have logged in, not only, Raj, I have been fortunate to be connected with leaders who are not only able, but are very curious. And anytime you offer them an opportunity for a topic which is new, they would jump onto the ship. And I appreciate all of you coming here. I know you're here not just for the topic, but also to support me and be here with your presence. So humbly appreciate it, and thank you for being here. Let me quickly share my screen. Give me a moment so that we can move into the topic very quickly. Just a quick check. Is the screen visible? Great.
Yes, Nimesh.
Yes, please.
In the meantime, Raj, I will need your help to, or any of your team members to help me to read the chat, because given that I'm sharing the screen and
I'll do that for you, Nimesh. I'll do that for you.
I think I also need to share the sound. So give me a moment again, because I don't want to miss that out. Yes. Especially the video clip. All right. So we are all set to go. I am hopeful that you're hearing me loud and clear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. So this is going to be a session which is going to allow me to speak for about an hour or a little less than an hour, and then we'll leave time for about 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes of question and answer. That doesn't mean that you don't ask me questions through and through. Anytime a question pops in, and especially if you think you will not be able to understand the further content, please unmute yourself and please ask. And in case you type in, I'll request the team to read out the question as it comes up. Great. So as the title suggests, we are going to talk a little bit about how disruptive the new macroeconomic trend of blockchain and cryptos is. And let me start with a very familiar picture as it comes to you on screen. Could you quickly identify which generation you belong to in the audience, and quickly type in your name and the generation that you belong to? So these are just general classifications. We are not being racist in any way. We just want a quick dissection of the audience out here. Baby boomers were the ones who were born between 1955 and 64. Gen X was 1965 to 80. Millennials was 1981 to 95. Gen Z was 1996 to 2012. Alpha, I hope none of the Alpha is out here, was born post 2013. In case there is an Alpha on this group, I would love to invite her or him to take the session along with me. Team who's watching the chat, could you just shout out just the generation type which is coming in?
So there are more of Gen X and baby boomers.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you spot the word millennial or
yeah, there are a couple of millennials as well.
And the moment you spot a Gen Z, just shout out the name as well.
Oh, sure.
All right.
We have baby bloomers as well.
Yes, I was expecting a lot of baby boomers and Gen X for sure. Millennials, I am happy to have them here. I would be pleasantly surprised to have some Gen Z. And Alpha, I don't expect them to be here. But we're just getting used to why I have brought this as a first slide is very simple. You will have a large number of opinions coming in from almost all generations about this topic. Okay. And it is very interesting to see that how they skew towards a particular pole in terms of how they think about cryptos. In fact, the generation which is most friendly to crypto is Gen Z and below. So Alpha possibly would be accepting cryptos without any reservation. Gen Z is almost there in terms of their ability to follow cryptos. Millennials, a large part of them did cross over sometime between 2010 and 12. Yet there would be a large number who would not know what is happening around them. Gen X and baby boomers like me, I'm Gen X. Well, there's a healthy dose of skepticism is how I would put it. So moving on, I'm presuming everybody is identified which generation they belong to, because you'll understand why I'm doing this as we go along. Take a look at these three images and tell me if there is a common thread passing through these three images. And if you can, shout out. So you could unmute very, I hope that's okay with the organizers. I would love to engage with the audience. So if you can identify a common thread, while you could always type in, if you wish, you can unmute yourself and speak as well.
All three are gone.
I think all three companies are no more
Yes.
into action, you know.
Yes.
Kodak and Planet M.
Yes. So that means all three have seen the sunset, right? And without spending too much of time, because Kodak probably is the most overtold story among the three. So I'm going to immediately put in front of you a graph. Okay. And this graph is very important. Sourced from Peter H. Diamandis's book, Bold. And for those who are curious on reading, I know some of you are very curious. I would strongly suggest you pick up this book called Bold. Author is Peter H. Diamandis. So this graph comes from Peter Diamandis's book. Look at those 5 words which are underlined. And I'm going to keep quiet for the next 5 seconds for you to internalize. All right. If anything made sense to you on this screen, I would love to hear that.
I think general life cycle of the product, the way it has gone in last so many years, right?
Yes, very good. Anything else that caught your attention? See, we have deliberately mapped Kodak on this. All right. So there is something that happened to Kodak over the period of this life cycle.
I think they invented, but did not capitalize on it.
Yes, it started there. They actually shelved the world's first digital camera, which Kodak employee himself had developed, and they didn't allow it to be brought to the marketplace for obvious business reasons. Having said this, this technology was discovered eventually by others, and there was a large period in interim where nobody really bothered about the digital photograph technology, till suddenly a massive disruptive trend started off, especially with some of the digitized companies which allowed you to alter the photograph images online free of cost. And this brought in a massive blow to the company. Eventually, these online platforms like Flickr and a few others offered free storage of photographs and free alteration of photographic images. And that kind of put the nail in the coffin. Now, interestingly, the other two companies, again, whether it is Hutch or whether it is Planet M, went through a similar phase. All right. So it starts with digitization of some service which is similar. Then there is a deceptive phase where nothing happens. And then suddenly an offer comes in from a disruptor. Sometimes these offers are free. So in case of in case of the music, Planet M, it was Napster. Okay, and Napster came out with a free music sharing website on the net, and bang, the moment music became free, it didn't make sense for people to go out to a music store and buy music, and thus was history as far as Planet M was concerned. Again, you have a very well-known story of Jio, and then you know what happened to the rest of the telecom industry. We did not go into the details, but everywhere, what was interesting was there was a period of disruption preceded by a period of deception where nothing seemed to be going wrong. And then as the disruption happened, suddenly some of these players offered everything free to people like us. And as soon as it became free to people like us, for example, Gmail offered free email, and they also offered free storage, and Jio offered us free internet. And as this free came in, it led to a massive disruption and demonetization, which thereby led to actually closure of a large number of companies. Now, interestingly, this entire last part of this curve, which is democratization, I didn't speak about it in the previous slide, was the only reason was, take a guess, what does democratization mean as far as this curve was concerned, the previous one? I have mentioned the hint in the bracket here.
Nimesh, a request in your screen, the taskbar is coming at the top, so it's not, it's blocking the view. Can you just...
Okay.
You can take it up, just pull it up, Nimesh.
Sure, I'll do that. Just give me a moment.
Oh yeah, I think that's okay. Yeah.
Sorry for that. Sorry for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so how did each generation react to democratization of business? And democratization means where we were the products, we were no longer the customers. All right. So when we got email free, Gmail started using our content to understand more of how our behavior was. Facebook was far more blatant and directly decided to sell a lot of this data. The others try to use it to an advantage so that they could target us with relevant advertising. And virtually speaking, everywhere where any of these services were free, we became the products. Now, let's look at the reaction of each of the generations. So may I shout out this question, and Vinita, I'll request you to read out the answers again. Please tell us, what was your reaction to the fact that when you sign up for an app, like let's say Facebook, or for WhatsApp, or for Instagram, or for whatever, there was a set of terms and conditions which you had to agree to? Well, if you do not agree, you can't download the app. And these terms and conditions very clearly told us that your data is no longer your property, it is going to be our property, right? And each of these generations had a different reaction to it. So I would love to ask this question to the audience out here. What was your reaction to the fact that there was a precondition to agree to an agreement before you could use any of these services? And Vinita, over to you, if you can help me read the answers out.
Yeah, so it says, I never read those, didn't read and sign it. And, that's the way people have.
Correct. And
somebody did hesitate.
Okay.
J. Kumar accepted and proceeded. That's okay.
All right.
Nimesh, even if you're hesitant, the network effect is so strong that sometimes you have to give in because otherwise your work was getting disrupted.
Thank you for saying that. I think that is largely true. Some of us didn't like what we were signing, but we signed up in any case. All right. The only generation which challenges this, okay, and I can tell you from my own experience, it happens to be Gen Z to an extent, and Alpha to quite an extent. Now, Alpha doesn't still, they are the below 9-year-olds. So obviously, they aren't really busy signing up, but you give them anything below an 8-year or 9-year-old, and the first thing they will ask is, why should I do it? Okay. And I am seeing this very clearly in Gen Z, because my son belongs to Gen Z, where you give him an agreement and he first says, hey, why do you want to sign this? Do you really want to do it? And it struck me as a different chord, because, well, I also saw that agreement. I also didn't like it. But as shared a little bit earlier, I thought, well, if I don't sign up, I'm going to miss out. And the FOMO got me to sign up almost everywhere. Okay, whether it is Twitter or whether it is Insta or whether it is Facebook, you name the platform, and there is an agreement to sign. All right. I would love to share this. This is a very well-known photograph. Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2008. We all felt the impact. But guess what? In the streets of United States in 2010 and 11, there was a massive outbreak of protests, largely because a large section of people felt alienated because they lost their jobs, thanks to some top-level leader in some financial conglomerate. The entire market crashed. A lot of companies had to downsize. Kindly ignore the sound which is there in the background. I stay very close to the airport, and there is a flight takeoff which happens once in a while. I'm sorry for that, but I'm used to it, so it doesn't bother me so much. As the companies collapsed and as people lost their jobs, the biggest jolt was given to the millennials, largely because they had just joined in to the stream of new workforce, and before they realized, they lost their jobs, and for no fault of theirs. All right, so there's a massive demonstration in the Wall Street. It was called Occupy Wall Street. I don't know how many of you are aware of this. And largely, the generation which was involved in protesting was the millennials. Okay, I want to share a quick film out here. Let's hope the film plays out well. And this gives you a glimpse of what happened.
They told me, we're going to be out here as long as it takes to see change in this country. And I told them, you're going to be here a while.
Occupy Wall Street is a movement where we elevate ourselves, the people of the world, as equals in power with the 1%.
The top 1% have experienced dramatic income gains over the last 30 years. Most Americans have not.
It's not about greed, it's about the sense of unfairness.
There are a lot of people that want to work and they just can't find the jobs.
I'm $45,000 in debt at 20 years old.
Their debt is unpayable.
The entire world is fed up with the huge disparity of wealth caused by the present system.
It used to be one man equals one vote, now it's $1 equals one vote.
Corporations are people, my friend. Of course they are.
We need to separate money from politics, taking back the power of the electoral process.
We have a fearful government.
They consider Occupy to be verging on a domestic terrorist threat.
The American dream has turned into a broken promise.
People wake up. What can we do to restore security for people who are willing to work hard in this country?
They inspired me so much by their conviction that I made a very quick decision that I have to be arrested with them.
The Occupy movement is about giving people a voice.
This is the proudest I've ever been to be an American in my life.
It feels like something's finally being done.
All right. Does anybody want to react to this particular film which you just saw? What did you see there? What happened in 2011?
Chaos.
Chaos. And where did these people come from? And why were they protesting? Take a guess. And the reason why I'm asking this question is this is the base of why crypto has become such a large movement. All right. It is the base why it is
Somebody
almost
says no, there's no trust. That's the reason.
Brilliant statement. Yes. I think 2011 was the first time when we saw on the streets that they had lost trust on all centralized institutions, especially the millennials, and then followed quickly with Gen Z. Okay. While you and me, I am Gen X, and some of you are baby boomers. I think we simply are a set of generation who would just accept these limitations imposed by the central institutions as a rule that we have to abide by. But this generation was different. They questioned 2008, and they said, if the central bank was so well educated, and if they understand that the common man has to be protected from financial irregularities, and that's what their function is, then how in the world did so many people lose their jobs so suddenly in 2008? While the guys who lost their jobs had nothing to do with what went wrong in Wall Street. Interestingly, largely because of the fine print, none of these major Wall Street leaders were imprisoned, while the people who lost their jobs never got it back. Okay, and I think this became the major base for movement towards crypto. All right. So the people who were on the streets, when they went back to work, they were looking for a system which will help them reclaim their sovereignty. Okay, they wanted to trust no one. They wanted to verify things for themselves. They wanted to be in control or in charge of themselves. Now, I may sound like I am an activist. I'm not. I just got to understand this in 2019 or probably 20. But I was trying to understand where it all started. And to my mind, these events were very, very important. Okay, they very clearly gave them an option. And this option was nothing but Bitcoin, created by an unknown, and somebody is named that unknown person or people as Satoshi Nakamoto in 2008. So mind you, from 2008 to 2011, there's barely any attention except a few geeks, a few engineers who saw this system as radical. But 2011 gave them their first set of embracers, because they thought, all right, here is a system available which can help us remain untrustworthy of the central institutions. Right? So that's the basis. And the word decentralization is stuck to a Bitcoin or a blockchain ever since then, because it actually decentralizes power. And that means this generation felt that, all right, if the governments and the centralized institutions cannot protect us, it's time for us to protect ourselves. And they moved into blockchain big time. And I think that was the first step for mass adoption. Okay, so what did blockchain bring in it within it for us and for the rest of the world? So I'm going to quickly name 3 or 4. For the first time ever, provided means to transact digitally. We also have digital transactions today, but remember, there's a financial intermediary otherwise. You would need a banker or an institution who would do the credit entry and debit entries. Blockchain, for the first time, did not need any financial intermediary to do these financial transactions. The only difference, these financial transactions would be of a local currency originated in the blockchain. Okay, and I think that was the key differentiator. Any blockchain enables any local currency to be transacted within the blockchain among the participants of the blockchain, and then they get permanently stored in the blockchain. Second point, allow democratization of management of blockchain by allowing anyone to join it with a computer and a requisite software. What does this mean? Well, interestingly, you no longer need a license from anyone to participate in the management of this particular outset blockchain. All right. And that means for the first time, there was an organization or a semi-organized community which came together and allowed anybody to participate in the affairs of the community without any specialized qualification, right? So what did it need to be a part of a blockchain management? Nothing, just a computer with a little bit of storage space, so that you could store all the files while you are in the blockchain. Now, interestingly, every single computer on the blockchain stores every single piece of data over all the computers. So that means there is a repeat storage of every transaction in all the computers inside the blockchain. All right, and this is stored forever. Now, in case you shut off your computer, if you are one of the computers participating in the blockchain, and if you shut off the computer, no problem. When you come back online, you can catch up. And that means the software enables the computer to catch up, even if it was shut off for some time. And that means not all computers need to be on mode in the blockchain all the time. All right. At worst, you need one computer to be on inside the blockchain, and the blockchain would still be alive. Third point, for the first time, blockchain allowed anyone to mint or print a currency without the blockchain, within the blockchain, without any license. So suddenly, as somebody very rightly pointed out, they lost trust. The central bankers were not trusted with the job of printing money. We saw what happened. They identified, hey, we could print money and get away with it from 2008 onwards. Interestingly, 2020 was a watershed year for mass adoption on the blockchain, especially on the definance or the decentralized finance side, because they saw that the Federal Reserve went ahead and printed $4.5 trillion US dollars, 4.5 lakh crore dollars, without really bothering about what could be the side effects. I think these events, right from 2008 onwards, this consistent printing got more and more people to adopt blockchain. So there is an external event which is influencing the movement towards blockchain. Okay, we all know what happened in US in 2020 and 21, I presume. All this $4 trillion worth of printing, well, it has taken the inflation in the United States from 1.5% on an average for the last 20 years to 7.5% in the last 1 year alone. Now, if you're in India, imagine your average inflation is close to about 5%. What or how would you react if it becomes 25%? Well, that's precisely what a citizen in the United States is experiencing today. Okay, 1.5% to 7.5%. And that is where the millennials and everybody around the millennials are now, some of the Gen X as well, is suddenly waking up and thinking, hey, did I do the right thing in trusting this government? Because they started off by saying this inflation is temporary or transitory. That was the word, that the inflation, thanks to the printing of dollars, is transitory. Slowly but surely, they couldn't do anything about the inflation. So they did something to the narration that the inflation is transitory. They took the word out, transitory. Okay, because they couldn't take out the word inflation. And as we speak, I think the markets are very clearly making up their minds that we are going to have a very strong uplift in the interest rates because the Federal Reserve is already behind the curve. Okay, for the first time, the blockchain allowed the freedom to an individual to decide through a community decision whether to make a print money or not to print. In fact, the blockchain is pre-programmed and no human intervention can actually alter that pre-program on the element of who and how much would be printed within the blockchain as a currency. All right, so that's the interesting bit. A lot of times, for example, in Bitcoin, they know exactly what's the total number of digital currencies that will be printed ever. Okay, irrespective of how many years you spend trying to look or trying to mine a Bitcoin. In a moment, we'll describe what is mining, but let me go forward. Most importantly, it allowed the community of computers and their owners to decide the rules they would follow within the ecosystem. Now, this for you and me may sound a little surprising, but for the millennials and the Gen Z, and then of course, even now the Alpha, deciding things on their own is the key differentiator. All right. They don't want to be told what is to be done. They would rather decide for themselves. And I think this blockchain gives them an extremely important freedom to do that. Last but the most important, trust no one, verify for yourself. And I think that's where blockchain started off as a major differentiator. May I request the participants to quickly take a camera on your phone and click this photograph. Can I do that, please? I'll request everybody who's listening in, could you kindly click a photograph of what is seen on the screen? And may I have a volunteer to now read out what is seen on the screen? Anybody? Would you unmute yourself and just read what's on the screen?
I promise to not share a learning capsule based on this presentation later for your future reference if you give me assurance to read it again.
All right. All those who took a photograph, could you just verify, please? Is this what was shown in the slide?
No, Nimesh, I think there was you added a promise to not has been added, included.
Yeah.
Do you have a proof for that? Do you have a proof for that? Could you, do you have a photograph?
Yes, we do have.
All right. How many of you noticed that in your photograph, the word not is missing?
The moment we click, the slide changed.
By the time, yeah.
All right. This is nothing but a blockchain transaction. All right. So let's say there was a transaction between me and Binita, who's handling the backend. And I promised Binita that I'm going to share the learning capsule after the program is over. All right. And that was captured in all the computers on the blockchain. And then later on, I came and said, hey, but I always promise not to share. And then all of you who were holding that photograph would say, sorry, we don't agree to this. And hence, the transaction would be rejected by the blockchain. All right. So what you just experienced is nothing but a blockchain transaction. Right. Something gets stored forever. And then if either of the two people who entered the transaction tries to change the narrative, the blockchain will reject the new transaction. It will flash and automatically compare through the software what was the original data. May I now ask the audience, where all could you apply this in real life, in business transactions? Where all do you think this could solve problems in the existing situation?
Audit.
Excellent.
Real estate.
How? Could you elaborate? I love the fact that you mentioned real estate.
It's quite complicated, and the documentation verification is a big problem.
Absolutely. And that means the first thing that anybody who is wanting to buy real estate, he has to arrange for a search report. And the search report tries to get all the chain of documents of all the previous owners, whoever have transacted in this particular, that particular property. Now imagine if a real estate provider would offer a blockchain-based solution saying, okay, every single transaction of this new flat that you're buying forever would now be encapsulated and stored in this blockchain. And that means any future buyer, if he or she needs any reference document of previous years, it will be available on a click. Okay, so this is a very simple application of a blockchain. Anybody else? Where else do you think this could be utilized?
Government procurement to avoid corruption.
Excellent. Very true. In fact, governments are seriously thinking, how can we introduce blockchain into our processes so that whether it is terms and conditions, or whether it is technical specifications, or whether it is any kind of quality norms, they would, and the assurance that the vendor provides in terms of these quality norms would be stored forever and transparently and without any possibility of future modifications. We call this immutable. So once the data becomes immutable, nobody can challenge it.
Medical records. Medical record.
Absolutely. Glad you mentioned this. Medical record could be another very interesting application, because the records usually lie in with the individual hospitals. And then if you go to another hospital, they would go ask you to perform the same tests all over again. Instead, if the records were on a common blockchain, then all medical professionals could have access of that data only with your permission. So that means the blockchain on its own could never use this data, because the only reference in that data is your encrypted code. So nobody knows data belongs to whom except you, who have the private key to that encryption. So that's the beauty of this blockchain. Any other application that you can think of? Thanks for quickly coming out with these. Passports, fabulous. It would not be surprising that sooner than we all think, you might have digital passports which are stored in blockchain forever. Okay, and then the forgery, etc., may be a thing of the past. Let's move on. I want to discuss a little bit on how does minting happen inside a blockchain. Okay, so there are two basic ways of minting money in a blockchain. One is mining and other is staking. Okay, I've deliberately pasted two images on the screen in front of you. I know the code, or rather the comment at the bottom of the photograph could confuse you. So ignore that comment for the time being. Just look at those two photographs and tell me if the bottom photograph means mining and the top photograph means staking. From the photograph, what can you decipher? And Vinita, if there are some chat comments on this, kindly read out, because I'm not able to see the chat.
Traceability in food chain is one thing. Simple yet powerful demonstration of blockchain.
Excellent. So these are comments obviously coming in from the earlier question. The key question out here is, if you look at these two photographs, and if these two are representing ways of making money or minting money, so minting is the word, ways of minting money in a blockchain, what do these photographs communicate to you? Look at the top photograph. What is it that the photograph is communicating to you? Anyone? You could unmute and speak.
So somebody has said staking is participative.
Nice.
No. But mining requires expertise.
Brilliant. Thank God.
One is
somebody could
democratic, other is specialized. Yeah, it comes to the same thing.
Excellent. Yes, somebody was trying to speak. Go ahead, unmute and speak.
Someone is also trying to maximize how much he can eat.
All right, that is an interesting comment. Yes. So yes, thank God you could interpret it this way. I thought and I hope that you would. So the photograph on the top, it's a group of ladies, and they're possibly running a collective cooperative kitchen. All right, where each lady would contribute her part of the cooked food. And let's for a moment assume that this cooperative kitchen is a for-profit cooperative kitchen for whatever reason. And then please take a guess. Whatever profit the cooperative kitchen makes, how would it be distributed among the participants? I'll repeat the question. If this is a group of cooperative women coming together, cooking, some making something, some making some other stuff, if the community kitchen were to make a profit, how would the profit be distributed among the ones who are running this kitchen?
In proportion of contribution made.
Yeah, based on the contributions.
Brilliant. And that's what staking is. Okay. So any blockchain which is essentially functioning by way of proof of stake. So I've introduced the word staking here deliberately. The proof of stake is nothing but you stake or you take a risk of your capital in our blockchain. And because you're taking a risk, whatever we charge inside the blockchain, the fees that are earned by the blockchain will be equally distributed among people who stake their currency. All right. So that means there is no CEO, CFO, there is no shareholders, there is no board of directors, there is no regulator which control a blockchain. Blockchain is controlled by a community of computer owners, and mind you, they can't even change the rules inside the blockchain because they are programmed and fed in forever. So if they have to actually change the rules of a blockchain, they have to create a new blockchain for it. It's called forking. Okay, but nevertheless, that is for some other day that we'll discuss. Here we are saying, hey, if the community members convert their existing wealth in whatever currency that is into the currency of the blockchain and stake the currency, then they are participating in the administration of the currency. They will take decisions on what are the rules inside the blockchain. And for any transaction that happens within the blockchain, we are going to charge a fee, and this fee will be equally distributed based on the proportion of the staking that you have done inside the blockchain. I hope this makes sense. I am trying to simplify, sometimes oversimplify things, but just so that we have people understanding what is staking. This is also called proof of stake. In case you have heard the word Ethereum, which is the name of a blockchain, well, that exists on proof of stake mechanism. Okay, take a look at the picture below, and people have rightly pointed out it needs expertise, it needs equipment, and that is proof of work method, wherein you employ a machine to guess the correct hash. Okay, now without getting too technical, because I know the geeks in the group will jump at the word hash, all I can tell you right now, so that it remains as simple as it should be, is that any transaction that I or somebody else enters on the blockchain, let's say you promise to pay somebody something in return of a service or a product, okay, that agreement will be converted into a hash. And the miner's job is to add some data to this and keep finding new hash codes. And the moment they find a pre-decided hash code, I'll give you an example, any hash code with 6 zeros in the beginning, they will be awarded a coin. So it is a kind of a competition among all the miners where proof of work is the way to mint. These minters will day and night keep trying to find a new hash code which meets the rules which are pre-decided when the blockchain was made. And incidentally, those rules can't change. They will keep trying to guess the hash, and the moment they guess the right hash, they get a coin, they get a Bitcoin. Interestingly, just to give you one such rule, in Bitcoin, for every correct hash guessing, earlier when they used to receive 12 Bitcoins, there was no cost or there was no importance of Bitcoin. Then it became 6 Bitcoins. Then it has become 3. Then it will become 1.5. Then it will become 0.75. Then it will become 0.35. And that means there is a finite number of Bitcoins that can ever be mined. Okay. And it is pre-programmed. They can't change it if they want to. Right. And that's why they keep on saying that any blockchain can decide the maximum currency that can ever be printed, instead of hoping that the central bank won't print more money this time because we will suffer with inflation later. Right. So I think that's what is attracting one complete generation towards blockchain. Okay, I'm still not trying to tell you that I am completely sold on to blockchain. I belong to Gen X. I have my own reservations. Those reservations will come in front of you in a moment or two. All right, but all I'm trying to explain out here is that there seems to be some truth and reality in why the Gen Z, the Gen Z, and especially now even some of the millennials are so sold out to the concept of blockchain. They're saying, hey, look, there is engineering involved. Nobody can, there is no corruption possibility, for the simple reason, thank God, the computers don't accept bribes to change codes on their own. Hopefully artificial intelligence won't reach that level. There is enough protection to make sure that, just like you guys have, there are, let's say right now, 70, 80 people, they have photographs which prove what was the contract that I gave to Vinita, and they could always refute if I or her or she were to change any of the contracts. All right. Hopefully, you've got some sense out of this. I want to quickly move to the next slide. Take a look. The means of socializing kept on changing with every generation. So the baby boomers, or probably slightly earlier than the baby boomers also, they were enamored by helping relatives. They used to thrive among relatives. Then, of course, Rotarians. I'm sure some of the Rotarians are on this group. My father, my late father, was a past district governor. So I've seen the Rotary world very closely. The Lions and the associations that they are a member of, right? Then the Gen X, my generation. While we looked at our dads and parents with amusement, we didn't really want to follow those, and we had our own social gatherings. We had our trekking groups and alumni groups and hobby groups, and we would rather join that. Okay. Then came the millennials. And for them, socializing was Insta and Snapchat and Facebook and WhatsApp. All right. And then Gen Z and Alpha, what is their socializing norm? So there are two questions here. Question number one, what is Gen Z and Alpha's means of socializing? And question number two, how does the previous generation view the socializing element of the next generation? What did the baby boomers think about alumni groups and hobby groups? What did the Gen X think about Insta and Snapchat? What did the millennials, what are the millennials thinking about the Gen Z social habits? And I would love to hear a voice pop up, or if you wish to write on the on the text. So be it. Vinita, please help me read the text.
Yeah, sure.
If the answers pop up. What is the socializing habit of the Gen Z? And how have subsequent generations thought about the next generation's habits? So let me yes, go ahead.
The previous generation always thinks that they do not understand what the next generation is doing.
Absolutely.
It says it's unreal and fake. And
it's unreal and fake, yes.
Metaverse.
Yes. So Metaverse is the correct guess. That's the new generation, the Gen Z and the more so the Alpha. Metaverse is going to be the socializing platform.
Zoom has completely got Alpha confused.
All of us, I knew, remember.
Gaming in groups.
Gaming, absolutely. And for anybody who's not Gen Z, you're going to look at the Gen Z and nod your head and probably say you give up on them, saying, what kind of generation is this? But interestingly, your own socializing habits were looked upon by your earlier generation exactly in the same fashion. All right. Now, we'll discuss NFTs in a while, but everybody talks about what high-priced NFTs and how can somebody pay so ridiculously high price for something which is digital? Well, think again. When you bought your Louis Vuitton belt or your Gucci purse, I think the previous generation said exactly this, that, hey, how can you pay 50,000 bucks for a watch? I have a 500 rupee watch and it gives me the same time. And I think across generations, there is always skepticism of the next generation. The paper is full of them. I don't want to name the experts, but every known expert has come out and said that blockchain is a bubble. It is going to crash. It is going to not recover. There will be millions lost. And quickly, please look at the age of the author. And then you realize that every generation looks at the next generation's venture with deep skepticism. Okay, show me one Gen X or baby boomer who likes blockchain, and I'll show you 100 who don't. Okay, show me one Gen Z who does not like blockchain, and I'll show you 100 who do. And that's the reality. Okay, so somebody correctly guessed. Here's the photograph. It says the next generation socializing will happen on the metaverse. Okay, I am sure you've heard this. This is now an overtuned word, but what it simply means is that there is a blockchain-based environment where your identity is in your hands. No Facebook and no WhatsApp and no one will be able to capture this data and sell it to somebody for advertisements. The blockchain will give you the decision whether you want to reveal your data and how much of it you want to reveal. And if you choose not to reveal, you will just remain a hash code in the blockchain while you are moving around in your avatar. All right. So your real photograph is also not visible there. So nobody can misuse the photograph. All right. And wait for Apple and Android to launch AR and VR glasses in tandem. And once the AR and VR glasses are available for a few hundred, maybe 1,000 rupees, you will have mass adoption of Metaverse. All right. Of course, you can continue your skepticism. You may continue to hate, it doesn't matter. It will last forever. All right, because the generation which is sold to it, just like you did in your younger age, is not going to really bother about what's the opinion of the earlier generation. Okay, why metaverse? So that's a good question to ask. And here is a quick set of reasons why. It is this generation, which even Peter Diamond says in his book, The Bold, that the generation is perennially online. All right. And because metaverse is a place where they get instant gratification, you and me keep telling, telling my son, hey, work hard for the next 10 years. And then you don't have to work hard. And he blinks and looks at me and says, why 10 years? Why should I wait so long? And often I start reflecting that maybe this is how I am conditioned. Somehow I need to work for a very long period of time before getting the rewards. All right. And this generation has grown up in smartphone era, and they get the results at the click of a button. And metaverse gives them almost instantaneously ownership of land, ownership of a business where they can actually rent out the land and start earning the next day in the local cryptocurrency. And it allows them to meet people who may be 6 countries apart. And all that fellow has to have, or that girl has to have, is a virtual reality glass. And you look around and you see people, you talk to them, they talk to you, and you may be placed in 2 different countries at the same time, in 2 different time zones, and both could connect with each other. Most importantly, this entire experience is gamified, in which now this is where our opinion about the next generation has gone wrong. We always thought the people who are into gaming will end up spending millions and millions on buying different games. The new generation is much smarter than you think. They are converging towards games which will get them to earn, not to spend. All right. So if you have heard of this term Axie Infinity, if you haven't, I suggest that you do try and find out through a Google search what is Axie Infinity. You will never want to play that game if you look at the creativity of whoever is has created those animations. But with due respect, I am no one to judge. And there is a mass adoption of Axie Infinity. Why? Because that was the first blockchain game which allowed the player to earn cryptos while playing. So the next generation is very, very smart. Okay, they're converging where there is possibility to earn money. And the most important part is they can control and administer their environment. They don't have to wait for a Microsoft or some gaming company to release the next version. They themselves will decide what the next version would be. And that's why blockchain presenting metaverse has become such a big conversation point. For all you know, I don't know how many of you have kept track, but Atari, which is a gaming company, has gone out and bought a huge tract of digital land in Decentraland. Warner Brothers has gone out and purchased a huge piece of digital property inside Sandbox, which is one of the blockchain game environments, because they know that this generation, they are going to spend a huge amount of time in the metaverse. I would rather sit there and influence them and do some business with them. H&M, which is a very well-known textile garments brand, has already opened stores in the digital metaverse, trying to sell off their designer clothes at a massive, sometimes attractive and sometimes massive price based on what they're selling. And that means they're trying to converge the real world with the metaverse, wherein you select, try something, look how your avatar looks in this dress. And then if you feel that you want a similar dress for yourself in the physical world, they will do the needful and do the shipping. All you got to do is pay them in the local currency in the metaverse. All right. So e-commerce has already started the initial movements inside the metaverse. It is still very, very early days. Yes. Yes, I can see a few hands raised. Please unmute yourself and ask the question. I don't want to just keep talking all the while. And we have about 5-7 minutes, and then I'll stop talking, and then I'll open the house for questions. But yes, if somebody's unmuted yourself, go ahead, ask. All right. So I'm presuming I saw the raised hand by mistake.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next slide. And this slide says, let's look at the type of blockchains, which you can see here. Okay, now each blockchain is independent of the other one. All right, so each blockchain is a set of computers connected to each other, and they allow transactions to happen within the blockchain, and the local currency is used. Now, how could you participate in any of these blockchains? Well, there are exchanges where you could actually buy the currency of any of these blockchains, and then you become a participant. And if you want to participate in the management of the blockchain, you got to go ahead and stake that currency, and then you become a part of the management of the blockchain, and anybody can do it. So that's the beauty. They are decentralizing and democratizing an environment which currently is restricted to the people who believe in it, because there is no legal standing of any of these environments, except that now they are being, even in India, they have been treated as assets. Although there is one country which treats this currency as legal tender, and that is, we all know, El Salvador. Okay, so in El Salvador, a Bitcoin is a legal currency, but nowhere else it is a legal currency. It is only an asset to park your money in. Right? That's the current situation. Couple of more slides, and then we quickly close the presentation. I want to talk about this particular aspect, which I'm sure you've heard. It's called NFT. Okay, so let me just go a step behind. Cryptocurrency is fungible. That means I can replace one Bitcoin with other Bitcoin, and there is absolutely no difference between two Bitcoins. Okay, or a one Ether with another Ether, and there is absolutely no difference between two Ethers. One note of rupee with another note of rupee, except the serial number change, there's no difference. Both represent the same value. Okay, that's cryptocurrency. It's a fungible token. Okay, now a Bitcoin also enables you to trade non-fungible tokens. That means in real world, let me give an example. If you go to a designer store and you buy a garment in the designer store, what are you expecting? Why would you pay a 20,000 or a 50,000 or a 5 lakh rupee for a garment? Can somebody pop in and answer this?
Possibly it is unique.
Yes, because it is unique. That means there is only one such garment ever to be made, and that is yours. And that's why you would want to pay such a high price. Now, how does the baby boomer generation look at this and say, what, 20 lakh rupees Sherwani? Are you gone crazy? All right. And the one who bought that Sherwani would say, but sorry, grandfather, you won't understand this, but no, this is a designer Sherwani. Okay. Now, the new generation has started talking in the same vein about non-fungible tokens. Okay. So what is a non-fungible token? It is a unique digital representation of something that is existing in real life. And that unique digital representation has now an owner which will be flashed, and they will keep flashing around in their digital avatars. So if I am walking and if I am wearing a designer dress, okay, it will be very evident to everybody else in the metaverse that I am wearing a designer Reebok shoe, okay, because it will keep flashing out there. And hence I pay so much as I pay for NFTs. So please understand, NFT may look like a complete waste of time and money and effort for you if you are not into blockchains. All right. But somebody is looking at you with the same disdain when you went out and bought a very costly watch, which showed that the time is 6:40 even now, with a watch which was probably 100 of that price. All right. So to each one his own, and we are nobody to judge whether these NFTs are rightly priced, wrongly priced, is there a scam brewing, etc., etc. The writing, the brags, the right to brag about an NFT is what takes the NFT prices so high among the participants who are going to flash these articles to the others in the metaverse. Okay, and that is NFT, non-fungible token. Interestingly, the real disruption in the marketplace will happen when the ownership of an NFT becomes legal. I'll repeat, the real disruption in the marketplace will happen when the ownership of an NFT is legal. That means you could challenge somebody else using this NFT in their name because you've bought it and it is visible in the blockchain. And if the courts will accept this as a legal right, then the real disruption starts off. Why? Because then all you need to transact any asset is an NFT. You want to sell a car, make an NFT out of the RC card, and you sell the RC card, the ownership changes of the vehicle. You don't need to go to the registrar. You don't need to spend money to hire lawyers and then notarize the signature, etc., etc. Okay. Any real life asset could be converted into an NFT and transacted upon, provided it is legally recognized. Right now, there is no legal recognition. So right now, frivolous things, frivolous in our opinion, but extremely valuable for somebody who is in the metaverse perennially. And that's why you're seeing such a boom in NFT. Right or wrong, we leave the judgment out. We are no one to judge. All right. Very quickly, I think I need to move the last two slides because we are running close to the closing time. Okay, fantastic. We're not too far away from the end in any case. So I think I don't want to leave out this, okay, because this is the biggest application of blockchain ever. In 2021, they call it the summer of DeFi, decentralized finance. What does this mean? It means the blockchain takes over the role of a financial intermediary. And remember, there the bank has closed doors. You don't know what's happening. All you know is that when you put an FD, you get 4%, and somebody said 5, right? And when you go to take a loan, they charge you 7, 8, 9, depending on the risk involved, right? What happens to the difference between that 4 and 9%? You don't even need to take a guess, all right? That difference comes back to people who participate in a blockchain if you were to interact in a decentralized finance environment on the blockchain. I hope this makes sense. I really do, because this is the place where maximum traction has been observed in the last 1 year. So what does a DeFi or a decentralized finance allow you to do? Well, it is a place where you can enter any financial transaction. Like, let's take a look. Here's a list: borrowing, lending, yield, earning, buying and selling, derivatives, compounding, global money transfers, and most of these are done through automated, pre-programmed, decentralized, autonomous organizations. That means there is no human being involved once the programming is done. It's a smart contract. If you do this, you will get this. That's what is programmed. So if you do it, you will get it because no physical intervention is required. It is the computers which will execute the code. And that means you can have place where you go and borrow money against your staked currency. You can borrow fresh currency. You can lend currency and earn an interest. And mind you, you are used to 4%, right? Here, on an average, the interest that you earn ends up between 8% to 14%. Sometimes it can go to as high as 25%, right? And if you are a risk taker, you can actually lend this capital to a liquidity pool. Of course, there is a risk of losing the money if somebody defaults. But if nobody defaults, you can make as high as 25% or probably 50%. All I'm saying is, this is a space where crazy stuff is happening. Okay, you can actually decide not to participate and play safe. And when you want to play safe, you can simply lend your money and wait for the interest to come back. And once you are sure that the interest is coming back, then you increase the amount of risks you want to take. All that is feasible. If you just don't want to do anything and want to just go there and lose money, that is possible as well. All right. So my suggestion is, if at all there has to be one place where any other generation, especially the baby boomers, I think you are going to like this because it's all about money, honey. And at the end of the day, when you start seeing that, hey, the risk is the same, but the returns seem to be much higher, why not try out? And I think that's what a large part of people who are introduced to this subject try doing it. I started it. In fact, one of my friends who influenced me is very much on this group, listening into this call. Kushal, thanks for pushing me into this. And then this is how you start understanding. Let me warn people who are going to get into blockchain. It's not an easy ride. Okay, there are plenty of challenges. Most importantly, you must start with money which you can completely lose 100%, because then there is no heartburn. Okay, you don't want to put at risk something which you can't bear to lose 100%. And I think then the ride begins very interesting. Okay, I don't want to share this right now. We'll take it up in the questions, but this slide is important, so I'll stop here as soon as I finish this slide. What are the discomforts? I already told you one. Nothing is free. So, I found this to be the most difficult. I am used to free email. I am used to free tweeting. I am used to free sharing. I am used to free storing. Okay. Yeah, I know I am the product, but I just signed up. Yeah. And suddenly when you enter the blockchain area, nothing is free. Why? Because the community of computers who are manning this blockchain through their computers, they won't do it for free. If somebody is staking to administer the blockchain, they need rewards. So every transaction in the blockchain is going to cost you. Even if you want to move your cryptocurrency from one wallet to the other wallet, it's going to cost you. Okay, it's going to cost you money. Somehow they call it gas fees, just like they call filling up of gasoline, which we don't in India. But nevertheless, it means money gone in transaction. Okay, that's the first discomfort. And most of the baby boomers and Gen X, I found it very difficult to overcome, the number one. Number two, since you don't trust anyone, no one spends time, energy, and effort unless there is a fee received. Hence, the user interface design is extremely basic as of now. You need to really find your way through the tech maze. It's a geek's delight, but anybody who's not a techie or a geeky is going to find it a little while to get used to all of this unstructured stuff. Okay. And that possibly is also an opportunity for people who want to think on that side of the business. Okay. The next one, any error, even a casual one, and boom, you will lose your cryptos. There is no helpline. There is no escalation. Let me talk to your supervisor and let me talk to the MD, and there is nobody available to talk. And if you make a mistake, your currency is gone. Okay. The next one, with no regulation so far, there is equal opportunity for everyone to participate, including the scammers. And that means the whole message is buyers beware. Always check the URL before you enter the data. Nobody is going to warn you. You've got to warn yourself. Right? So it's fairly interesting ride as of now. All cryptos are traded with stable coins. Now, this is the very interesting point. Everything gets measured in terms of stable coins. Okay, USDT is one of the stable coins. USDC is another stable coin. What is stable coin? It is a coin which has the same value as the US dollar. Hey, but we thought we are not trusting US dollar. All right. Interestingly, right now, every single blockchain valuation is based on a stable coin which is pegged to the US dollar. Okay, and that's where a big question mark pops up. Now, here's the good news. Please study, all those who are inclined, to a cryptocurrency called Float, F-L-O-A-T. Okay, and Float is working hard to give you an alternative, decentralized, universal currency which is not based on the dollar. Okay, so this is the last point that I want to leave, and then now quickly open up the era for questions. I know we have very little time, so sorry for over going through this, but I think the last slide was important, so I kind of dwelled into the time. Go ahead. Any questions, and I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, Nimesh, this is Vadva.
Yes.
Why peg it to US dollar and why not to something physical which is valuable, for example, gold?
Interesting
Nimesh,
question. Yes.
Can you stop share so that we can see everything?
Yes. I just didn't want to stop the share for a moment because somebody's going to probably ask a question, and I
all right, okay, keep it on, no problem. Yeah.
Just for that moment. So this is a great question. Why not have some real underlying to this asset. And a quick question is, interestingly, the last time any currency, whether it is the dollar or the rupee or the euro or the yen or the Chinese yuan, okay, the last time any currency was backed up by gold was 1971. Okay, and President Richard Nixon came in 1971 and says, hey, that guarantee that we were giving that every dollar will be printed based on a gold reserve has been temporarily suspended. And that temporary suspension continues even till date. Okay, so, sir, no currency in the world has any backup by any gold reserves. Okay, if that was true, US would not have printed 4 trillion or 4.5 trillion now in just 1 year. All right, so, and that's the logic of why no crypto is also backed by any physical asset. What is crypto? It is a means of exchange of transactions between two members in the blockchain community. Now, what is running the rupee and the dollar? It is the trust in the rupee and the dollar which makes dollar and rupee valuable. Okay. Similarly, any blockchain member has full trust in the currency of the blockchain, and that's what makes that blockchain currency survive. I hope I've tried to give you an answer. I don't know whether I could convince you.
Well, not really. I've really not understood, but maybe over a period of time. But still, you gave a good insight into it.
So let me quickly tell you, there is no basis of dollar being at, let's say, the dollar index being at 95 today. There is absolutely no basis. There is no gold reserve. Yet it is 95 dollar index. Or let's say dollar to rupee is 74. Yet it is 74. There is absolutely no basis.
If there was no basis for the Bitcoin to a dollar, actually there would be no use for a Bitcoin.
Yes, you're right.
Because eventually we are not buying and selling in Bitcoins until that opens up, maybe with Mr. Musk at one time threatening to do it.
So I'll tell you what.
Bitcoin itself is just a currency which buys you nothing, which sells you nothing.
So I'll put it this way. Why it is based on the US dollar so far is because people need a measure of whether they've gained or lost something. All right. So it's a little bit like saying, how high is Mount Everest? Now, for that, you need to know the height from sea level. And that's why you need a sea level. Right. So similarly, whether the Bitcoin is appreciating or depreciating, I wouldn't know till I compare it with a baseline. Unfortunately, so far, the baseline is US dollar.
Yeah, but that's because it's got no other method of comparison.
Exactly.
Because there is no other, nothing you can buy or sell with it on an absolute basis.
Absolutely. Because right now, it is an asset everywhere. You can't buy and sell anything with it because it is not a legal tender of exchange.
Tell me, the whole excitement about Bitcoins is because A, it has increased in value exponentially, and B, it's a hugely fluctuating currency. Therefore, people can get to play with it and try and make money. I mean, that is a debatable truth, but nevertheless, like
I would agree to an extent, but I would disagree largely for two reasons.
Yeah.
The excitement of late, yes, I can't argue two bits with you. It is largely driven by the valuation change.
Right.
Okay? But the adoption, especially the gamers, especially what's happening in DeFi, well, they don't even bother what is the price of the cryptocurrency. For that, the moment you stake a currency and you start getting a yield in that currency, you start forgetting about what's the price. It's like saying, if I receive a huge dividend, it doesn't matter where the share price is going. Right? So there is a large section of adopters who are looking at the decentralized aspect of the blockchain rather than the price in the market of that currency.
Sure, that's a good idea. But only thing is, since one isn't used to this decentralized structure as yet so much, because there is no such thing called a free lunch.
Sure, and I think you will realize this as soon as you enter.
You know, our regular currency, if you have a genuine lender or a genuine borrower, it is very easy to transact. Here, we are now either getting into the guys you are lending to and who are willing to give you 25% or 15% or 20% as returns. I don't know. There is a huge amount of. See, the whole thing is driven by greed.
Hang on.
No, because you are asking this.
There is no guy who gives you 25%. That's what I want to correct.
Right.
Okay, because there is no guy on the other side. We are used to guys on the other side, number one.
Right.
Number two, there is no free lunch, I agree, in both places.
Right.
So in real world, you pay by way of inflation. All right.
Yeah.
In the blockchain world, you pay transaction fees.
Right.
So there is no free lunch. And that I am in complete sync.
Okay, anyway.
Yes.
Some amount of
if
study.
you're finished, I have a question, Nimesh.
Yes.
So you call it an asset class. Now, every asset class can be converted into liquidity, whether it is real estate, whether it is gold or shares or whatever it is.
Yes.
So who is the agency which will convert? Assuming I have 10 Bitcoins, 10 into so many $1,000, somebody must give me those dollars if I want to sell it.
Beautiful.
Otherwise, how is it an asset class?
Beautiful. So that takes me to the slide I've been waiting to take you to. Take a look as how to begin a crypto journey, and the answer to this question lies inside, and then if required, I'll clarify further. Is that fair?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, so it starts with money which you can lose so that there's no heartburn. That's the only reason. Second, get familiar with an online wallet. Right. So this is, I'll give you an example of an online wallet, MetaMask. Okay. So if you type MetaMask and do Google search, you'll know how to handle the online wallet. This is where you store your currency. Then open an account in a centralized exchange. All right. So this is your answer, sir. Who will convert crypto into a fiat currency is the question, and an exchange does that. Okay. So today, for example, in India, if I open an account with WazirX or CoinDCX or a few others, they will convert my rupee into a crypto or crypto back to the rupee. Okay. So the finance minister announced in the budget that there is going to be 1% TDS and 30% tax. Now, guess what? It's the exchange which converts the crypto into fiat will deduct the 1% TDC, tax deductible at source, TDS, and then you will declare what your profit was and thereby pay the 30% tax to reclaim that 1%. I hope this makes sense now. Okay.
No, you pay on profit, you will pay 30%, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah. Then fund the exchange. So that's the next step. That means you put your fiat money in the sense rupee, into the exchange, and then convert it into a particular blockchain's currency. You have to identify which blockchain you want to be a part of. I gave you some examples earlier. And then your ride begins. So you start purchasing a crypto. Then this crypto, I think this is a very interesting step. You need to move the crypto out of the centralized exchange into your personal wallet. I think that is the real introduction of crypto. Until that point of time, there is no difference between you buying shares and selling shares and buying cryptos and selling cryptos. Okay, so the real difference starts once you move your crypto from the centralized exchange's wallet to your personal wallet. It's something which you may do or may not do. If you don't do, fair enough. You can keep buying and selling in the exchange and there is absolutely no problem. Problem is the crypto is the property of the exchange and you're still trusting an exchange. If you go by the principle of blockchain, you don't want to trust anyone. And that means you need crypto into your wallet.
What happened?
Now, the moment you want to move this crypto into your wallet, you will have to pay transaction charges.
Another 1%.
It could be based on what is the price of transaction at that moment. If there are too many people wanting to do a transaction, the price goes up. If there are few people wanting to do transaction, the price goes down.
Okay.
All right.
Nimesh, what happens? Sorry, go ahead, please.
Go ahead.
No, what happens to the profit which is made by the blockchain?
So as I told you, this blockchain is a community of computers, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at the last line on the screen, it says stake the crypto. That means if you bought a crypto, now if you stake it, it's like that community kitchen photograph which I showed you a few slides earlier.
Yeah.
So the people who participate in the administration of the blockchain by staking will get the revenue generated by these fees in proportion to the stake that they brought in. I hope this makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Dividend.
Yes, kind of.
So after putting into your wallet, you must take the crypto, is it?
You can stake the
okay.
There is nothing must, because
no,
remember,
no must.
You're the master of your decision.
No, I know, but is that the right strategy?
Yes. That's the only way you can stake the crypto. Okay, it's not going to be possible for you to stake the crypto from your centralized exchange wallet.
Okay, okay. Directly without putting in the wallet.
Because see, remember, staking means you're participating in the administration. If you were to actually stake the crypto from your centralized exchange, or say, let's say a WazirX or a CoinDCX wallet, then they would participate in the administration, not you, because on the file, the crypto belongs to them, not to you. It's only that the exchange tells you, don't worry, the currency which is with me is your property. That's all.
Okay.
All right.
But there is another major thing which they say that there is a lot of hacking which takes place.
Yes.
And there is very little that we can do to prevent it. Is that a right concern?
So, it's a little bit like saying that do not reveal your password and login ID, or do not reveal the last 3 digits of your credit card to anybody who asks you on the mail. Phishing, as we call it. Okay. Now, there are always means and ways of programmers trying to break the security codes of various blockchains. Okay, there have been enough instances where they have found some loopholes. And what happens is anybody who's part of that blockchain at that moment may lose that entire holding. That's why it is said that never keep your cryptocurrency inside a centralized entity's wallet. You would rather keep the currency with your wallet.
And you should have several wallets?
It depends on what your strategy is. If you're afraid that somebody may be tracking you, because if the same wallet number keeps flashing everywhere, chances are they may know that it belongs to you. So there are enough ways and means of having more wallets. It's like saying more account numbers, so they nobody knows whose account number it is. All right. So it's usual psychology of humans that I'll keep money in 5 different pockets. Okay. And the last point.
Mishai.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Did I interrupt you, Nimesh? This is Irfan here.
I think that is a fundamental problem.
Yes. Go ahead. Yes, Irfan, go ahead.
Yeah, Nimesh, I just wanted to hear your views in terms of, because most of the examples that you shared, the disruption was created amongst private enterprises.
Yes.
Here, these cryptos and this technology and this concept is trying to create a disruption with government monopoly.
Yes.
Okay, so to that extent, at least I believe it's going to play out a little differently. But how what's your view on it? Because the governments are going to resist legalizing crypto. So how do you see that playing, or you have any view on that?
Excellent question. Irfan, it's like this. The governments of the day initially reacted very negatively. All right. So they just did not like. Why? Because the central banks hated cryptocurrency. The reason? Because it undermines the ability of the central banks to manage liquidity inside an economy. All right. So they have reasons to be annoyed with cryptocurrency. All right. However, they've realized that a large chunk of Gen Z and Alpha, okay, and even part of millennials have adopted crypto like no one's business. All right. Now, that is an excellent counterweight to the centralized FANG companies, the Facebooks and the Googles. And we've seen the government struggling with these centralized organizations to provide data. All right. So you've heard and read in the newspaper that WhatsApp won't reveal because it is encrypted message, and the Facebook won't tell you what they are doing. And subsequent governments have failed to get any data from any of these FANG companies. All right. So the politicians who essentially may be belonging to the baby boomers have suddenly realizing that, hey, this is counterproductive. Why should I ban something which is a counter force to the centralized companies which are growing too big for their comfort? Twitter banned the president of the United States. So the message was, if Twitter can ban president of the United States, it can decide at will who else to ban. All right. And blockchain is a fantastic counter force to the centralized company. In my opinion, the governments are never going to allow it to die, because the politicians are ruling the government. and they understand more than anybody.
And we know who's invested into crypto.
and they know that, all right, as long as there is a counter force, no point in trying to destroy it, because it is going to help us control the other force. I hope this makes sense, Irfan.
Interesting. Thank you, Nimesh.
So Nimesh, on the same subject, so, how does central bank digital currency, what is that instrument all about? And does it follow the same principle?
With the underlining thought that I'm just trying to make it lighter, I think central bank digital currency is a last ditch effort by the central bank to stay relevant. Why? Because they know that these millennials and these alpha generation kids are going to quickly grow into the mainstream in about 5 to 7 years, and they're going to bring their habits and their dedication to blockchains with them. All right, and that generation is simply going to refuse to deal in fiat currency. Then what do? No, then we must offer them an alternative. And that's why, forget about banning cryptocurrency, RBI is joining the crypto world by bringing in the CDBC.
Okay. But Nimesh, this is going to be extremely difficult because they have their own banks, they have their own government departments, which will close down in case this progresses. So this is really a dilemma for them.
Absolutely.
Big dilemma.
The same dilemma which GST brought in for toll taxes. So we used to pay octroi. And then the octroi staff were up in arms saying you can't abolish octroi. But eventually GST had to prevail. And I think that's the nemesis of any change. Whether we like it or no, it happens. So I agree. It's going to be a painful ride from here. But I think we better put on the seat belts.
Prepared.
Yeah, this reminds of the first curve which you showed.
Yes.
I think that's the deception phase now.
Absolutely. You said it. This is the deception phase where we're thinking, acha, ye to kisi na kisi din ho jayega, the bubble will burst.
Yes.
We have our own definitions, and this is the deception phase. It is the same phase in which the telecom companies were sitting while Jio was busy setting up 4G towers all over India.
Right.
I have a small point.
Well, very interesting, Nimesh. Thanks. It was really an interesting insight. Yeah.
Pleasure. Yes, I am here available for any further questions. Yes, in the meantime, if there is a pressing engagement you have and you need to leave, kindly feel free to do so. I hope, Raj, that is okay.
We can continue for some more time if there are more questions.
Yeah, so if there are questions,
Nimesh, when you want to leave, that's more important.
No. This is a subject of passion, and I would want to answer every query before I move out.
So, Nimesh, there's a very interesting question which impressed me also in the chat box, which says, while choosing one cryptocurrency from many available, what are the factors to be considered? I'm sure this question must be, everybody wants an answer to.
Yeah, nice point.
Great point. I think the first step is to not confuse it like we do when we choose shares. Right? So, because that's the start of a confusion. The more I treat it like shares, the more confused I'll become, because there is no fundamental to study. So then how do I decide? All right. The way to decide, or the things that you want to look out for, is what is the blockchain formed for? What is the problem they are trying to solve? Let me give an example. So XRP, which is owned by Ripple, all right. So the blockchain was formed very clearly to solve the transaction of inter-country foreign exchange. Today, if I want to send money, if I am an immigrant in the US and I want to send money back home to whichever country, I need to depart about 8% of what I'm sending as fees. Right? And 8% is massive. It could be lesser if you have established credibility. It could be still lesser if you are a customer of that particular bank, and so on. But if you are not a customer and you still need to desperately send money home, a PayPal would charge you 8.8%. Crypto says, first of all, they charge you 8.8%, and they may take anywhere between 2 days to 5 days, and they will ask you to fill up 5 different forms. A XRP could get this transferred in 3 seconds. Convert your fiat to XRP. XRP is plentifully available in their blockchain. Somebody out there in the geography where you want to send it will receive this blockchain, this crypto in their wallet. They will convert that wallet crypto into dollar. You pay the transaction fee in the exchange and the money reaches officially. All right. And that's the problem they want to solve. Now you look at every blockchain, they're trying to solve something or the other. Okay. Bitcoin wants to solve the storage of value. They're saying this is going to be a perennial storage of value because the amount of cryptos is finite. Okay. Ethereum wants to empower anybody who wants to create a smart contract. That means non-human lender. There is no fellow on the other side. It's a smart contract. So smart contract is pre-programmed contract, completely transparent. There is no XXX or a lock sign, and there is nothing which prevents you from reading what is inside the contract. Okay, it's a public blockchain with a transparent smart contract. That's Ethereum. Ethereum has massive adoption in DeFi or in decentralized finance. Okay, I hope I have given you some answers that, hey, look at the blockchain. What is the purpose? Where do I find out what is the purpose? Yeah, that could be a good question to answer. You need to look for the white paper. Every blockchain, when it is formed, it first releases the white paper. White paper is nothing but the articles of association equivalent. Okay, so they state very clearly what is the purpose, what is it that they want to solve, why they want to solve it, how they want to solve it. And I think that element of study is what you need to do to decide which blockchain you want to participate. The other way of participating, just like in the stock market, you look at the yields which generates while staking. That tells you what is the number of transactions that is happening in the blockchain. Now, if you want to participate in that, buy the currency, stake it, and you will get a part of the profits as regular income. As long as, of course, there are people transacting on that blockchain.
Nimesh, I have a question. My name is Shivaraman.
Yes, Shivaraman.
And it is quite different from many of the other questions that have gone around. I understand that Bitcoin mining is extremely energy intensive. And it will throw this whole global warming and this 2 degrees which we are running after totally out of gear is my limited understanding. What are your thoughts?
So, it all comes back to looking at embedded cost. I don't know, because a lot of us are experts on finance and engineering out here. There's a very interesting concept of embedded cost. Okay, and recently I was reading an article, and maybe what I'll do is I'll share that article with Raj. And Raj, I'll request that you share it with all the members who are present here. In a nutshell, the thought is very simple. Yes, it is energy intensive. So there's no two doubts about it. Okay, so that let's park it very clearly. Proof of work is a energy intensive process to run a blockchain. Okay, that's the reason why a lot of blockchains are coming out with an alternative mechanism called proof of stake, where you stake your currency and you get to participate. You don't have to mine a currency. Okay, and that's why Ethereum and a lot of new generation blockchains are moving away from proof of work. So this is the first response to your question, that even a lot of other companies feel maybe consuming energy isn't the best way to run this system. Okay, now let me give you some very interesting thoughts by the blockchain community, which is into Bitcoins. They are saying, please, if you think that this is doing disservice to the nation, all right, so they're saying, hey, let's look at where power is generated. And wherever it is generated, it's an engineering fact that you've got to consume it as it is generated. And the moment you can't consume as it is generated, either you will store it or you will waste it. All right. So if some of you who have seen refineries, there is a flare at the top of the mast where they burn away certain gaseous elements as fire. All right, because that they do not have means to capture that energy. In windmills, you generate power, and if it is not utilized by the grid, you store it in a battery. And the moment you store it in a battery, all the gain you made by saving coal from being burnt will be given away when you dispose a used battery tomorrow. Okay, so there is enough elements of what's good and what's not so good for the environment, which you need to go deeper and look at embedded costs. The author has given a beautiful example of a can of baked beans, right? So he says, let's look at the cost of beans and let's look at the embedded cost of baked beans. Says beans is grown by a farmer. How much water, electricity, fertilizer is he going to use in the field to grow the beans? Then somebody is going to transport the beans from the farm to the processing house. So some fuel is going to be burnt while transporting. Then somebody is going to process the beans, right? Some energy is going to be used there as well. Then somebody is going to dig the earth to pull the tin out to create a can. Then somebody is going to use the petroleum to make a film which you wrap around the can. And that's the embedded cost which the environment pays for a can of beans. Similarly, there are a huge amount of embedded costs in every single so-called environment-friendly approach that you take, including a solar panel. All right. It's only what you're doing is by using going electric, you're pushing the can down the road. Okay, you're shifting the emission from the vehicle to the power plant. Not my opinion, but I have read it, so I want to share it here. My opinion is very simple. There is much more data behind this to quickly make a conclusion that something is environment friendly and something is not. I think the lesser we get into the details, the more erroneous our conclusion is. That's my call. And that's not only true for Bitcoin, that's true for every single investment asset. I hope this makes sense.
Thanks, Nimesh.
Yeah, just 1 second now that some of the operational thing. I mean, who teaches people how to transfer Bitcoins, etc., from the exchange to the wallet?
Great question. Great question. The simple answer is you teach yourself. Right. So, okay. So the way it goes is like this. When you open an account with a centralized exchange, which you got to do, as I told you in the steps,
right?
Exchange will have tutorials of how to buy and sell, how to store, how to bring money into the exchange, how to take money out of the exchange.
Out of the exchange.
Their education stops there. All right.
Right.
Now, the moment you want to shift this coin to your wallet, okay, a different set of educators exist, and they will upload their YouTube videos, which you'll have to listen to and then follow the instructions.
Okay.
Okay. Why this happens? Because there is no centralized company which has a profit
who's
to make.
Taking responsibility for.
Yes, that means you take responsibility for yourself.
Okay.
Largely, the blockchain world makes this true that only you can take care of your money better than anybody else. And I think they are walking the talk in terms of whatever is possible as of now.
Sure.
This answers.
So yeah, that's one. Number two, as of now, of course, our generation has not got these major issues with trust and trust deficit, etc. There are some, but those always existed, whether with the government or with the large corporations, etc., etc. But it's not of a major in nature. Now, if this is going to drive this trust deficit, is the real prime mover or prime driver behind entire movement and this entire digital currency. Do you think that finally people are not going to be so worried about the valuation game, and whether a Bitcoin will finally get to 1 billion, or I mean, sometime back, 6 months back, people are only talking about it. It'll reach 100,000 in so much time. It'll reach 500,000 in so much time, and 1 billion in so much time. And, the numbers are very scary and, seem very far-fetched. And if the job of a currency is only to keep having no underlying value, but through scarcity keep increasing itself, it's really a bit of a gamble, in my opinion.
Great question. Okay. So great question. But
when does it become something which is far more stable, where people can really see the other facets of currency coming forth, rather than hoarding and not and worrying day and night? I've seen people worrying day and night. I've got enough friends who invested in it, and their whole thing is about, the whole day and night is about the valuation, and it's not a minor valuation. Yeah, suddenly the net worth of the guy is eroded to 50% and then 30% in a matter of hours, and suddenly it goes 3 times up. So it requires a lot of heart.
Sure. So 2 points you covered. One was,
right.
Why is the fluctuation so dramatic? Okay.
Right.
So that it occupies the mind of the investors. And second, why is there so much of attention on it? It should be more about what the currency can do rather than what is happening to the currency.
What is happening to currency? Yeah.
Right? You're right. I think none of us pay so much of attention on rupee or dollar or any other currency in the world, for that matter. Okay. Interestingly,
not even Chinese currency.
Huh? Yeah. Interestingly, just because we aren't worried, it doesn't mean that the outcome doesn't affect us. So when a central bank goes out and prints a huge amount of currency, the outcome is back to our door in way of inflation. Okay. Whether you trust or you don't trust, the reality hits you when inflation moves from 1.5% to 7.5%. Okay. That's what has happened in the US in 1 year. Right. That's what will happen everywhere where the government prints the currency. Okay. Well, even if you trust the government.
Yeah. But that is also, there are a lot of macroeconomic reasons, and there are also reasons of economy, of the fact that you need to carry people with you who got it. So those I don't want to confuse with this. This will happen. And that's normal governance. If the whole world was ruled by just bitcoins, they would find some other way of compensating. That means government will start giving things free, run into deficit finance. So it's not a function of a dollar versus this.
So obviously, I'm not wanting to trying to convince you. I'm trying to give you a viewpoint, right? And the viewpoint is that as long as a mass set of people adopt any blockchain technology, okay, then the gyrations become very, very irrelevant. Because see, today you don't even notice that the rupee arose or fell in front of the dollar, because 120 crore Indians, everybody owns rupee. Okay, as compared to that, what's the percentage number of people who own a crypto today? And if 10% of those guys are afraid and they sell, it creates those gyrations. All right. Now, why does the community talk so much about the price of Bitcoin in the future? Very clearly, they want more adopters of blockchain. The moment a mass set of people adopt, the pricing variation becomes irrelevant, because then you have started focusing on the application of the crypto. You would start focusing on staking, yield farming, using the blockchain for selling some of the enterprise products and services that you have. And then the currency becomes just a means of exchange. That's ideally what it should be. But right now, because the number of people adopting the currency is very small, so if some of them sell or some of them buy, the price jumps, right? That's normal when any new thing gets adopted by the environment. I hope this makes sense.
No, yeah, sure. Okay. Those are my apprehensions only.
And Nimesh, what you said just now, I think it makes a lot of sense and clears a lot of doubt. I mean, we are looking at currently we are looking at Bitcoin as a means of profit, etc. But that's not relevant. The relevant thing is what is the application, the white paper and all which you said. I mean, these are really important nuggets, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that truth is irrefutable. And I think very clearly, blockchain is here to stay. In fact, if it was such a pain Why would a central bank come out with its own digital cryptocurrency? They would have in one simple line banned, like they banned narcotics, or they banned so many other things. Okay, what is very clearly on the wall is that even the central bank realizes that, hey, I think our mode of currency exchange is getting outdated, and we need to redesign ourselves. And central bank digital currency is an attempt to do that.
Sorry, I just want to come in, but Vidur.
Yes, Vidur.
The whole concept of blockchain, right, is it's unregulated, right?
Yes. Yes.
When the central banks are involved, it starts becoming regulated. So then the entire purpose of blockchain gets defeated, even if we're coming out with a digital currency, right?
Yes.
So then how does that work then?
Interesting question. So I think it's a fundamental question. Okay. The purpose of rise of blockchain was decentralization. And then when a central institution brings in digital currency, what happens to decentralization? All right. So what is their hope? Their hope is that, hey, look, the next two generations, when they come to the mainstream, so an 18 to 20-year-old, when he comes to the mainstream and becomes 25, 28-year-old, he's going to bring his dedication to a digital currency. All right. Now, if I still tell him and insist that you have to deal in rupee, physical rupee, or whatever, a bank-driven rupee, he's going to rebel and he's not going to listen. All right. Just like some states have tried to ban liquor, and you know what's happened to liquor consumption in those states. Wherever it has been tried to ban cigarette smoking, you know what has happened to cigarette smoking in those states. All right. Similarly, if they ban cryptos, they know the adoption is going to go up multifold. So what do? Stop. Don't talk about banning it. Instead, let's have our own crypto option. And then let's hope that the younger generation chooses a digital crypto, which is a legal tender for his day-to-day transactions, while chooses to park some part of his money into the other cryptos, which are assets, right? Just like you park some of your money into shares, right? That's the hope. That's the logic behind a central bank trying to forge ahead and create a CDBC. Not only India, across the globe, a huge host of central bankers are bringing in their digital currencies.
Yeah, Nimesh, you yourself said that mass adoption. Yeah. I mean, this is the best case scenario. I mean, digital currency in India and 120 crore people using. I mean, what else it could be? This is the best scenario, in fact. They can reduce the banking regulations, and maybe some banks have to be closed down.
Yes.
It is still worth it to have this digital currency.
Yes.
120 crore of population, yeah.
I think when they bring in that CDBC, some of the banks will be up in the arms, especially the public sector banks, because they will have nothing to do.
You can already see the pressure on the financials, I mean, in the stock market. I mean, I think it's a precursor to the bigger things coming.
Because if the central bank comes in and issues a CDBC, it is directly communicating with the owner of the CDBC. There is no financial intermediary in between, just a set of computers. And then what does a banker do? It is not by compulsion getting people to flow through it. You know, when you exit a monument, you are forced to go through a shopping exchange to get out of the monument. Okay, that's precisely what the scenario is today when it comes to banking. You are forced to go via a bank. But with CDBC, that path of bypassing the shopping center and going straight out is available.
Nimesh, I'm Ambika here. Could I ask a question?
Please go ahead, Ambika.
So, if you're saying that the central bank could come up with a currency which is regulated, then in the whole blockchain value or concept, what would be the problem it would be solving then?
So very clearly, central bank is first trying to be relevant to the next two generations, number one. Number two, what it would mean also is that the cost of transaction would dramatically come down. Why? Because the number of intermediaries involved in a financial transaction would come down to zero. Today, any financial transaction, let's say I want to export something to a client in the US, there would be at least 3 bankers, if not more. And each one of them would act as an intermediary and charge. And that charge would be paid either by me or by my client. And CDBC tries to solve that by eliminating the intermediaries. Does it make sense? The good news part is, if 120 crore Indians get used to a wallet and get used to transacting using CDBC, I think their transition to a public blockchain becomes that much easier, because then you don't need further education.
So then
you don't need a mutual fund campaign.
Sorry, I'm not able to wrap my head around the fact then about the fact that you're anonymous. So you're not anonymous anymore.
You are a 26-letter hash code instead of being anonymous. All right. So even if it's a public blockchain, Ambika, right? What's your name?
Yeah, Ambika, yes.
Ambika, your name would never be flashed inside a blockchain unless you choose to provide the private key. So what will be visible in the blockchain is a 26-letter hash code, which is the public key of your identity. Now, anybody who has a private key, access to private key, they would know that it is Ambika. And hence you can choose who to share this private key with. Does it make sense?
It makes, I mean, I understand the concept of a private blockchain, but when it is, I'm not able to get how it would work as a public.
So what I am saying so far, Ambika, is about a public blockchain, not a private blockchain. So let me explain. When you open a wallet, okay, Ambika, whose name would you open the wallet in?
You're talking about one of these
blockchain wallets, yeah, digital currency wallets.
Yeah, so let's say I have whatever your 26 code.
So the blockchain will say, hey, here is a unique number, okay, which represents Ambika in the digital world. And that would see, like, if I read that unique number, it makes no sense to me, because it is a 26-letter.
Something like Aadhaar number, for example. That's our identity.
Yeah, and even more complicated than Aadhaar number, because there are some symbols and a hash at the end and an exclamation mark, and you don't know what it means. And each one of us is represented by one such 26 number hash, which is called the public key. Okay. Now, whoever you choose to share with, by sharing your private key, would be able to know that, oh, this account belongs to Ambika. Is it making sense?
I understand that, but then how is that different from at a public level? How is that different from my own savings bank account number? I mean, if I don't share that, nobody will have it.
So Ambika, your bank knows your savings account, doesn't it?
Oh, they are an intermediary, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And that means the first set of people who know your bank account is your branch staff. Then the next set of people who know it is the branch manager. Then the third set of people who know it is the head office of that bank. And the fourth set of people who know it,
income tax.
Income tax, where you have given your bank account number. And the fifth set and the sixth set, wherever you have linked your Aadhaar to your bank account, everybody knows.
Correct, but my question is actually something in terms of if it is a public blockchain,
yes,
then you do, let's say you need to pay income tax, etc., etc. There is needing to be some level of this whole business of how the private blockchains are working. I'm not able to bridge.
So I don't know where the word private blockchain came in, because I've deliberately.
When I'm saying private, I mean that if it's not run by a central government, or run by a central.
So that's not private, that's decentralized.
So that's what. So it's decentralized. So, but if you're saying that the
Ambika, just to correct your understanding,
yeah,
it's a public blockchain. That means even Ambika can participate in managing that blockchain tomorrow.
Sure. Sorry, I was using the wrong word. I understand that. So yes, I understand about the DeFi. But if it is run by the central government, I mean, if a central bank puts it out, then how is it DeFi anymore is what I'm trying to understand.
No, if the central bank puts it out, it is not DeFi. Okay, it is centralized finance or CEFI.
Right.
Right. Now, CEFI and DeFi will exist, coexist, because DeFi remains asset and CEFI remains legal tender. Are you with me?
Okay.
Right. And then the crossover from CEFI to DeFi becomes very easy, because I have been educated by the central bank itself on cryptos by the mere use of the CDBC.
Okay, so I understand. So that's clear then. So then that won't be DeFi anymore. So then that's what
that's a CEFI, CEFI, centralized finance.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
One question. This is Rama from KL.
Please go ahead.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Okay. I again belong to Gen X, so you know our suspicions.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I am Gen X.
Yeah. And all these volatilities and insecurities and all these things.
Yes, yes.
So currently, I saw a statement from our RBI governor, Deputy Governor himself, telling that the cryptocurrency is nothing but much more than the Ponzi scheme. So with that kind of statements and our own digital currencies, and we trying to charge all these TDS and other things, do we think still that cryptocurrency could be able to survive and become an acceptable identity, legal tender in the years to come shortly?
Okay, great question. The deputy governor belongs to either Gen X like us or possibly belongs to baby boomers. Right? So I can name a few now. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala has said the same thing. Okay. The former governor of RBI, Dr. Raghuram Rajan, has said the same thing. Right? They are all saying this crypto thing will burst at some point. Okay. They are too knowledgeable for me to say they are wrong. But all I can tell you is, irrespective of what the baby boomers and the Gen X thinks, okay, Gen Z goes ahead and does what exactly it wants. Just like when we were young, irrespective of how the elders thought of us, we went out and did exactly what we wanted. If the deputy RBI governor thinks that crypto is a Ponzi scheme, why is RBI legislating its own crypto? You know, if it was such a terrible thing, then why did the government not legislate a ban on it? So these two questions answers everything. First, RBI saying we will also have a crypto, and second, government saying we are not banning existing cryptos. Matter is over. And that means the future very clearly is that crypto is going to survive whether we like it or no, whether I like it or no, whether you like it or no, even if we don't accept it. Marijuana has survived despite it being illegal. And now US has turned around and said, hey, marijuana has medicinal properties. So some of the states have gone ahead and said marijuana is legal. And now you have ETFs in the US stock markets where you can invest in marijuana. So I'm saying, please, opinions change with time. Take every opinion with a pinch of salt, including mine.
Yeah, thanks, Nimesh, for
thank you.
Answers and also the enlightening session.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the nice session, Nimesh.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Pleasure is mine.
And information.
Pleasure is mine.
Thank you, Nimesh. We'll keep in touch, and we are also recording the session. Anybody who wants, can send me a mail or message. We'll send the recording to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Pleasure is mine.
Nimesh. At least I was